things, it sounds like people feel like they're being attacked, or people feel like they don't want to listen. And so she encouraged members of her stewardship to, as you're talking about environmental things, to find ways to make it more, make it so that people's hearts will swell as wide as eternity. So finally, as we have a discussion today, I wanted to think about, like, what is the reason that we have Christmas celebrations, and what is the reason that we are celebrating this time of the year? And it really is that Christ, he's the reason for this season, and because he's our creator, as we celebrate Christmas, we should also be thinking about respecting the thing that he created for us, which is the earth. Yeah, so this brings me to our first sort of, like, that was my introduction, but now I hope that we can, like, talk about some of these things. So the first question that Sharon Eubank asked talks about waste. So as you're thinking about typical Christmas celebrations or Christmas celebrations that you've had, what are some typical sources of waste that you've seen during Christmas time? And what are ways that you have found to reduce this waste, or who benefits as we avoid waste? So I can start with a few that I've noticed. I feel like a lot of Christmas time is focused around buying things that we don't need. And like, there's all these sales and Black Friday sales that are just about, like, buy something just because it's cheap. I also think that the other one that I always talk about is, like, light pollution, which I know is sometimes, like, a contentious thing. I remember I feel like when I first learned about light pollution, which is the idea that, like, when you have too much light, then it hurts animals that need the dark for nocturnal purposes, which yeah, so those are a few things that I've noticed. But what about you guys? What do you feel like are the biggest sources of waste, or things that you see that you want to avoid?
It's sad that I had never thought of this before, but a couple of years ago on Facebook or something, I saw somebody post an image about how typical wrapping paper is not recyclable, and all the alternatives that you can use instead of wrapping paper. And it had, like, literally never occurred to me that you couldn't recycle wrapping paper because it has, like, a plastic film over it, or, you know, there's often foil in it and stuff. And so so that's something that I've tried to be conscious of the last couple of years. Just use, like, craft paper, like old newspaper, or, like, literally anything lying around the house to recycle to wrap your gifts. Because the wrapping, I mean, you can make it look cute, but that's not what's important. It's what's inside of it. And also the same thing with just getting a lot of stuff that you don't need. I feel like that often happens to me, like with parents and stuff. You know, they just want to gift you things, and they give you a lot of things that you're like, I didn't really want that and don't have use for that. So to maybe be a little bit more proactive about, like, telling people what you want so they know what to get you, and then also making sure that you're being purposeful with what you get other people, and making sure that they will actually like it and use it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I love the idea. Yeah, I was looking up, like, what type of wrapping paper, because there is some wrapping paper you can get that is recyclable, but anything that has, like, foil or glitter or, like, plastic on it, like is, yeah, I think that's a big one where I feel like it's pretty easy to make a switch to find cute alternatives. Or I know my mom recently started using, like gift bags that you can, at least if you save the gift bag, then you can use the same one from last year, which I think is a fun idea of reusing wrapping paper.
I've never done this before, but a friend shared with me that it might have been in England, but anyways, there was this rent a tree program. So rather than cutting down a tree or getting a plastic tree, they literally rent a potted Christmas tree, and then after Christmas season, it gets returned to the farm where it comes from. And then every year you could even, like, re-rent the same tree. And I don't know if that's the best solution, but I thought it was a really creative idea for people who have that kind of thing accessible. And it made me think about how fun it would be to have, you know, like a potted Christmas tree that I keep outside most of the time, but then can bring in over the Christmas season, because real trees are I think, a lot more fun than fake ones. But it's also sad when, you know, you're constantly cutting down a tree every year, instead of just, I mean, if you could have a live one that is able to stay alive, I think that'd be a lot better.
Or like, yeah, I think that's a fun idea. I had when I posted on Facebook, somebody was asking this question about which one is better, like real trees or fake trees. I made a slide about this. Let me see. This is my real versus fake Christmas tree dilemma slide. If you have a real tree, like, yeah, we feel bad about cutting down trees, but this one article from the Nature Conservancy was like, yes, but like, even though you're cutting down trees, like you're supporting forests and tree farms, and they provide like habitat for things, and they sometimes grow in places that are unsuited for other crops. I think the nice thing about a real tree is that because it's not, especially if you can get one locally, then you don't have to worry about like the emissions that carry a tree over. And I guess artificially trees are usually made from material that's not recycled and is pretty like, or not recyclable, even though sometimes it is made from recycled materials. But the artificial tree people say, but even though it might be made from bad stuff, like our impact is lower because you can at least reuse the tree multiple years. So yeah, but I think if you have a potted tree, then you're not cutting down a tree or using bad tree materials. But
I was just going to say, Becca, this is the first year ever we've been able to do this, but we actually cut down a blue spruce tree, and our Christmas tree is beautiful this year, and it was grown in our own yard. So that was kind of because it's a spruce that is, I should have known better and not planted it here. You know, I'm an advocate for native plants, and yet I planted this, which is native to like the mountains of Colorado, and they don't thrive in Maryland. They get a fungus, and I didn't want to have to use a fungal spray every year to keep it alive and healthy. So instead it's been turned into our Christmas tree.
Wow, that's really neat. Didn't we do that one year, Mom? Did we plant a tree? We had a planted tree and then I don't remember. I feel like I was maybe too young, but I do remember like
yeah, we got it from our yard. In fact, we did it 2 times because there were some trees that needed to go down, except for when it warmed up. Do you remember that, Rebecca? We had some natural friends appear that were red spiders.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So
But
that made Christmas even more fun because there were
it
spiders
was even
on
more
the tree.
exciting.
Yeah.
But it lasted really well.
Yeah. Does anyone else have comments on like what are typical sources of waste or things that they try to do to avoid waste during Christmas time?
One thing I've wondered about, and I haven't really figured out an answer, is, you know, I love it when people send Christmas cards, and sometimes it's on paper and that's recyclable, but then like the photos, I'm trying to figure out if, you know, if send the family photo, if that paper is recyclable, and then sometimes like the envelopes now, they have the foil inner lining, and I've heard that's not recyclable, and then, you know, they'll put out decorations on the, you know, sometimes some cards have jewels or things on it, and anyway, I just think it'd be nice just to keep it simple. But then I think, well, so some years I'm not good at setting Christmas cards, but I think it's a good idea. But one year I just sent it on Facebook. I'm like, Merry Christmas, everybody. And but I always wonder if that paper that you put photos on is recyclable or not, because I read about it, but I couldn't understand if it was or not.
I don't know. Does anyone know the answer?
I would assume it's not, but I don't know. And same with anything with foil on it, like with the wrapping paper, you can't recycle that. I also have like waffled back and forth between the Christmas card thing too. The last few years we have sent them out partly because I don't love social media and it feels a little bit impersonal just to like post a picture on social media. And I think it's like lovely to get like a physical card in the mail. But I found a company called Paper Culture that we've gotten our cards from the last couple years, and they make their cards from 100% recycled materials, and then they also plant a tree with every order. So
Ooh, I'm gonna look that up.
Good halfway option.
It's what's it called?
Paper Culture.
Paper Culture. That's super cool.
Yeah, and then just like get something simple, no fancy foil, glitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Cause yeah, you know, cards are more personal and so I was torn. There's so many things. Yeah.
You can't really do this with the photo cards, but I usually save cards year to year, and it's surprising how often I've been able to, like, of course, I'm the kind of person that would do this, but tear off the part where the person signed their name or whatever. And then on the back, if it's just plain, then you can write a new message and sort of send it out as a card, or like to go along with, say, you're giving a gift during the holiday, and that could be your little note that goes with the gift. Doesn't need to be the whole card. Anyway, so that's, sometimes you can put them to use for a second time before they're recycled.
I like those ideas. Thank you. I think going back to, oh, sorry, were you going to say something, Mom?
Well, isn't it interesting that sometimes we think we have to do this big, glorious thing, but really the simple thing is less expensive, you know, without the foil back on your envelope and all that. It's less expensive, and it also saves the earth, and it saves our time, and it saves your money. It, you know, it just saves in so many areas.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting, but it doesn't always have to be like going clear out of your way. Sometimes it is a simpler way. I also like going back to this comment about like not being careful consumers and buying gifts, like being careful about the gifts that we buy. One thing that I love that we do in our family is that we have coupons that we give to each other, and I know that like as kids we always hated writing them because Mom will be like, okay, you have to write something you're going to do for each of your siblings like on a coupon. But I do feel like that's sort of like a sweet, like it makes you sort of think about what would this person want instead of a physical item, and it also I think helps to avoid having too much stuff, right? What about this other question? Like who or what benefits as we avoid waste?
I think one thing that I hadn't thought about too much, but have more lately, whenever we waste, you know, there's resources that have been used up to create that item, and especially things that are made up of plastic or other, you know, that have been created from various chemicals or whatever. The process of creating that item creates harm and to air pollution, water pollution, and there are literally parts of the world that are practically uninhabitable and where people are dying much younger than they need to die, and they're living with terrible diseases just so that people can have, you know, fancy sneakers or various things that really a lot of times are purchased, used a little bit, and then thrown away, and then become a problem for landfill or to be incinerated, creating more air pollution. And so the thing is that most of us live in places where we're not actually experiencing the negative that's associated with the creation of the elements from which things are made. And a lot of times that's in places in China or India, other countries, and where there may be also less restrictive environmental laws. And so it would be interesting if you could actually, like anytime you're buying something, have some kind of tag on it that told you how many people had died of air pollution related to that, the production and whatever the other harms are that occur in the water that's harmed. And then you might think twice about like, oh, do I really need this, or is it just something extra?
Yeah, and I think it's difficult also because as just one person, I feel like it's really easy to get into the mindset of like, well, what I do doesn't matter that much, because like if I don't buy this like glitter wrapping paper, then someone else will probably buy it, or it might get thrown away anyway, or it might get wasted. But I think like it's more, I don't know, I think as we shift our mindsets, and as we shift our cultural values, then I think that slowly society will move towards these things that seem to be better for the planet. So
one thing I keep thinking about is how, I mean, especially right now, so many people order presents from Amazon, and sometimes, you know, they come in this, it's this little thing, and it comes in this plastic package, and I'm like, oh, this is so sad. And I feel like because of so many people are, you know, it's easier, and you know, you can't go to the store very well anyway, and so more and more people are using this online option, and I feel like, oh my goodness, we're creating so much waste just by the packaging. I mean, it's never mind what's in it, but just all this packaging is just overwhelming. And I try not to order from Amazon. If I do, just like I have to just like do as much as I can at once, but then they still come from different places, and so it seems like it's kind of a catch-22. And I don't know, it's just amazing to me how much Amazon is taking over the world.
yeah, I think it's especially difficult like during coronavirus, because a lot of us can't be together, and so we're turning to shipping. And I think one of the challenges is you have no idea like if they're going to ship it in a big box, or if they'll try to do it in a small box. And so yeah, I think that like in the ideal world, we would just like buy things locally, and then you could choose how they're packaged, but I think it's really difficult when you have loved ones who are far away, and then you have to think about, yeah, how do you show your love for them without packaging, right?
I really love that question though of who or what benefits as we avoid waste, just because I feel like there's so many different parts to it. I mean, there's the whole like, yes, clearly the earth benefits as we avoid waste, and like all those people who are impacted by, you know, like the piles of trash or whatever it is, or like the chemical, you know, like all of the different pollution and things that come from waste. But I mean, personally, I feel like we also benefit like personally ourselves inside as we like strive to live a less waste-filled life. And I think that for myself, I've noticed it can be easy to get discouraged and to think like, oh my gosh, how can I avoid Amazon more? And how can I do all these things? And like, it can, sometimes I just like focus on like the ways that I'm failing. And I think it's important to remember like, no, like I'm actually doing all of these things that are helping, and like I'm trying to do something, and to like remember that personal benefit that you can get inside just by striving to do little things that avoid waste.
I think that's one of the like biggest challenges of trying to be creation conscious, because once you realize that you are wasting things, and you see it all the time, and I think once you get discouraged, then it's hard to do it, which I think is why it's really important to remain positive and like to see the benefits of like, also when we try to live with the creation in mind, and we are feel more happy too. So
I was just going to say, if you have time, but not now if you're busy with Christmas, but at some time in the future, on the eartheast.org website, under inspiration, I've posted the Pope's encyclical to the world on caring for our common home and caring for the poor. And it's really very eloquent. And in it, he talks, I'm just paraphrasing, it's more beautiful the way he says it, but that there's just this joy that comes that just in it is innately part of when you live in harmony with the earth, and you're not consuming more than you need, that there's an integrity to your life. And it's really quite beautiful. So I would suggest you read it, because there's that that sort of spiritual aspect of it that maybe is pretty, maybe not obvious, and it's an intangible, but that as you step away from the consumption mindset, then you maybe naturally take more time to spend outside, or to think about people who may have needs that are not being met, in ways that you can meet those needs. And so he just talks about the integrity and joy and beauty of people who choose to consume less. And that there's also a cycle on the other side, whereas you're consuming more, there's a natural tendency to become more and more selfish and want more. Then you're never quite satisfied because you don't have everything you might, because there's always more you could have. So anyway, I just put it out there that it's a lovely document to reflect on sometime when you just want to spend a little bit of time reading something uplifting.
Thanks, Mary Kay. That does sound really wonderful.
I had a gift idea, Rebecca.
Mhm.
So I guess sometimes it's kind of hard to give something to like my parents who have everything. But for this last birthday, I happened to have this bowl that an uncle had given me that was kind of heirloom. And I just wrapped that up and gave it to her, and she was just so thrilled with it. And sometimes, the white elephant sometimes has a bad connotation, but sometimes if we have something that we know someone else would enjoy using for even a year or whatever. Rebecca, I know that one time you gave us a book. I think you gave Dad a book that you'd really enjoyed, rather than just keeping it. You gave him something that you really liked. And I mean, I guess that's still a white elephant, but you're giving something that's already there and someone else can now enjoy it. I think that might be an interesting idea with heirlooms or something, instead of just one person having them. It gave my mom a lot of joy to be able to share that heirloom with her. And Dad really enjoyed that book you gave him, Rebecca. And it was even more neat because I knew that you'd read it and enjoyed it. And I think I did that with another daughter, a book that I really read, I'd already read, and I gave it for a gift. And I think things like that can keep us from wasting Earth's resources when we can use them again, when someone else can enjoy them.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's I think regifting sometimes has like a negative connotation, but I feel like in some cases it is like if you give someone something that you have had and used and you feel like they can appreciate, I think that's really awesome. I like that example. Thanks for sharing.
Here's just a quick example since you brought that up, is this little Christmas tree back here. Well, I had a neighbor who's been dead now many years, and that tree was probably given to me about 30 years ago. And, it's not a fancy tree, but I've kept it. And when I put it up, it reminds me of Margaret and how kind she was to us when we were, just before we had kids and when our children were young. And what I do to make it look nicer is I just clip fresh branches from outside and shove it in. And so it actually looks pretty decent because it's got living branches. In fact, I'll just reach from behind. So like, little Christmas tree branches, which you could, if you don't have a garden, you could just go where they're selling Christmas trees, and usually they'll just let you take a few branches and then cut off the bits. You can make all kinds of Christmassy things for free for decorating or to give away. And I've put some examples at the Earth East, on the Earth East website, on the blog post, some pictures and examples of things just from cut materials that you can assemble. They don't cost anything, but people really like them if you give them, because most people don't think about ways to pull together natural materials and how beautiful they can be in the home. And actually the wreath above me, that's also got like holly and plants from the garden. And it was something I got secondhand, the basic wreath. And then I just doll it up by using fresh plants. And the Santa and the plate behind were also things that were given to me secondhand. So like it's interesting, if you were to go around our house, almost everything is secondhand, but it makes me happy because almost every object has sort of a story. I can remember where it came from, who gave it to me, or how I got it, and that I didn't buy it in a store. there's sort of a, I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but there's something that's really pleasing about that. It's stuff that would have ended up possibly even in a landfill, like that tree that, because my friend who was elderly was getting rid of her things, and probably nobody would have really wanted this kind of scrawny looking tree, but it turns out it can serve a purpose, and it didn't go to the landfill.
Yeah, thank you. I like that idea. I think getting secondhand things is also like a fun way to avoid waste. And you talking about creating things sort of brings me up to the second comment from Sharon Eubank, which is how we feel the Spirit of God in His creations. In our own creations, what do other people feel? And when we look at our own creations or the creations we are part of, how do we feel? So my sort of discussion questions here are, what can you create this Christmas time to help others feel God's love? And how can we honor the Creator and His creations this year? And what can you learn about God's creations during Christmas time? So I know Mary Kay has been posting on our Facebook page a few of the different things that she has been creating this Christmas time. And I wondered if you would share some of your thoughts on like the creation process involved and how you felt about giving these types of gifts that you created. Sorry, you're still on mute.
Thank you. I love doing it because, for one thing, it gets me, I like being outside and looking at the plants, to clip them back. There's the pleasure that comes from that. There's the pleasure of just taking various things and just with a little bit of string, tying them together, and then all of a sudden you have something that actually looks really quite lovely, and you know that it's going to give someone pleasure. And so it's just, there's so many different ways that you can use natural materials, and it also just brings nature inside, which I enjoy that in the wintertime. We haven't yet really hit our hard winter, but we're going to get some snow this week, apparently. So once you start having it cold enough that you're not outside, it's pleasing to have a lot of the evergreens inside your house. Even if it's just a matter of just cutting greens, and if you have a shelf somewhere, just laying them there and putting a few ornaments on, that can be very festive looking. And you don't have the sort of like a plastic garland or something made out of other kinds of materials that eventually will end up being in the landfill or being incinerated. So the nice thing with these natural materials is you can just put them out in your compost pile when you're done, or your yard recycling.
Yeah, I love that. That sounds like an amazing way to, I love the idea of sort of bringing the outside world into your house. The ways that I feel like I've tried to honor the Creator and the creations this year so far is I went and I visited the National Arboretum, which right now their holly is so beautiful right now. So if you're local in this area, I would highly encourage going and checking out the holly at the Arboretum, because it does make me feel very festive. But I thought about like maybe it would be a good idea to have like start new traditions that, like, say going on a Christmas walk, or I always like to go on walks and pick up trash. And I feel like that could be like a fun Christmas tradition where you're like, let's give back to the earth by picking up trash, But so what have been your experiences with creating at Christmas time or appreciating the creation?
Well, creating at Christmas time is something that I wish I did more of. I feel like I don't have a ton of time, and also I'm usually not on top of it enough, but I think handmade gifts are so lovely, because somebody, even if it's just something really simple, that somebody's put their time and their love into making something for you. And I've done it a few times, like handmade gifts for people. And even if, I feel nice about it because I know that I spent some time on it. I didn't just like click a button and like get it shipped to me. But I found myself asking for like artwork for Christmas this year, just because I found some artists that I loved and I wanted some prints. And so it's something that's really simple, but like just having like supporting other people's creations, I think is nice. And then something that I can look at every day to just inspire me. But yeah, I think it's really important and powerful for us to use our power of creation.
I like that idea. I like the idea of putting like others' artwork into this category too, of like appreciating other people's creations. It does seem like when it's somebody that you know or somebody that you like are I don't know, familiar with, it seems like the creation or the artwork seems to seem like a bigger deal.
This
And
year,
maybe people wouldn't necessarily think about this, but if you have the ability, like I noticed my niece is on Karina, that if you have the musical ability, as she does, a gift of like either a live performance for someone, or in this COVID world, maybe recording some music for someone and then giving them that recording, that is a really wonderful gift.
I like that
Right,
idea. Yeah. Go ahead,
I
Beth.
was just gonna say that that's in our family we're you know, we do music mostly, and so I hadn't really thought about it, but it is something we can create and give to people for Christmas. We've sometimes like for Greg's mother that's in California, we'll call up and do a musical performance, you know, some things for her for Christmas. So that's kind of what we create.
I love that idea, and I think that it's like nice thinking about how that can be like a gift that you give to someone else. Sorry, where's there someone else who wanted to say something? Sorry. Move on. The other thing that I was thinking about is like one way that we honor God's creations is learning about his creations. And I feel like as I'm like doing my PhD studying insects, I really feel like this is like something I'm trying to do, where I'm learning about the insects because they're like God's creations, and in a way that's sort of honoring him. And so I think one thing that you could do during this time is like maybe if you find like an educational book or something, you could give your relative a book about insects or teaching them about native plants, or I don't know, like learning just about the world around you, I think is a good way to honor the creator, and can be a part of our holiday celebrations as well. Finally, the last thing is what would move our hearts to swell as wide as eternity, so that we would act, we would use our will, and we would do something new for the benefit of humankind. So when Sharon Eubank brings up this question, she's referring this idea that making our hearts swelling as wide as eternity comes from a scripture when the Lord is talking to Enoch. And apparently Enoch knew and looked upon their wickedness and their misery and wept and stretched forth his arms, and his heart swelled as wide as eternity. And so the idea is that we want to, we as one person can't do a lot, but I know that like we all have influence on other people. And I think so I was thinking about how we could do this, especially at Christmas time. And I think as we're getting together with people, maybe one idea is like having discussions with our friends during Christmas time, or maybe giving gifts that help inspire someone to take care of the earth. We got as a wedding gift a little trash picker upper, and that's been really fun to use as we go around and like pick up trash. Another idea is like giving someone produce bags, or like a reusable water bottle, or like reusable paper towels. Again, I think this area is kind of tricky, because even if you're giving someone this stuff that is to help you have a more sustainable lifestyle, like if they don't actually stop using their regular paper towels, then you giving them reusable paper towels is just adding to the waste, you know. But so what do you feel like are discussions that you think would be good to have during Christmas time, or that could inspire, how can we inspire each other to take better care of the earth?
So what you said, I've actually like thought about that. I would love to be able to like give gifts like reusable produce bags and things like that to people, but I'm always worried that like it will seem condescending. Like, here's something that you can use to do better, because I don't know, maybe that's just me. But I feel like just as things like naturally come up in conversation with friends and family, like I'll find a new product, like some leggings made out of recycled plastic bottles or something, you know, maybe it'll like spark people's interest, like, oh, like that's cool, something that you can find. Last year we did Christmas with my husband's family, and I was really touched. Everybody, instead of wrapping my gifts in just their regular wrapping paper, they reused like paper grocery bags to wrap my gifts in, and used all like recyclable natural materials, like just for my gifts, not everybody else's. But I was really touched that they thought to do that for me, because they knew I care about that. And I was like, hey, maybe that'll snowball into them doing all of their gifts like that. But yeah, I think just, we don't have to like be preachy with people, but just like live your life, do what you care about, and share it with others, and then maybe it'll catch on.
Yeah, so have you found a way? I think that that's an interesting point that you bring up, that it can, like, if you give someone a reusable water bottle, it can be like, it could be taken as like you stop using plastic bottles or something, or like how do you keep it from being like something that seems like you're attacking? I don't know, does anyone have ideas about that?
It might help if it was something that you use and you could say, you know, like, I have really loved having this, and so I thought you probably would too, or something. Then it has a little bit different feel to it, maybe. I don't know.
I like that idea. Yeah, if it's something that you've said, oh, I found these that are like, I don't know, and you don't necessarily go in with the assumption that, I don't know.
It was cute last year that at Christmas time, there was a family that's part of Earth Stewardship. They had for their kids, and they have a fairly large family of all these little kids, but their youngest was so excited. She had brought her own recycled water, water bottle like this one you've got a photo of. And now she could be like all the other older kids in the family, and everybody had their own. And it was clear, just from the grin on her face, then the way she was holding it up to herself, that she saw this as like, I've made it to the big time, because now I've got what everybody else has. So part of it too is like, maybe if you have a family, is helping to create an environment where these things are natural and desirable, and so then the kids pick up on that and want to be part of it.
Yeah, I know with my in-laws, it's been like, once they discovered like the really cool water bottles, the ones that like keep your water really cold or something, now they're all about using reusable water bottles, because they have these ones that are actually really cool. So why would you ever use a plastic water bottle if you could use this one that like keeps your water cold, you know? So maybe part of it could also be like finding things that are like also cool, have the cool factor.
And I think, Rebecca, that there's a lot of things like you go to Walmart. I went to Walmart the other day, and I went through 3 plastic bags, trying to get produce. I know, Rebecca, I should bring my own bags but I'm trying to be better. But those things, the reusable things, are really useful, because they're getting really flimsy, and I think some of us who don't recycle quite as much, we do appreciate the hints of how to do better.
Yeah, and I think that's really important too, is not to be like if someone doesn't use reusable grocery bags or reusable produce bags, then I don't think that, like, a lot of the times they don't realize that you can have these things. And so I think it's really important that you don't try and be condescending, and that you're not, because all of us are wasting in some way. And so it's really important that you don't make other people feel bad for wasting when we're not waste free ourselves,
But I love the idea that, being environmentally friendly doesn't have to be an inconvenience. Kind of like with these bags, so you were talking about how like they can actually be more useful because they're not like getting holes in them, and you don't have to like, continually get a new bag. So I think finding gifts that are, you know, like if you know a hobby that somebody has and like there's a way they could do it that'd be more environmentally friendly and also more convenient for them, I think that's like a good way to pair things together, because I think there are a lot of ways that like people just don't realize they could be more environmentally friendly even if they want to. And especially like I feel like when you write a nice card with a gift, that can often really change the way that it is taken. Because you can say things like, oh, like this is something that's really important to me, and you're a friend who's really important to me, and so I thought you'd like, you know, really value this, or I don't know. I think that those are ways that you can give environmentally friendly gifts.
I like that.
You know, Becca, I'm so glad that you've connected this discussion back to what Sharon Eubank taught us, because she's so insightful. And if any of you did not get to hear her in the 2019 talk, I would really encourage you to read that. It's a very moving. I happened to be there in person when she gave the talk, and the spirit was so strong. It was just a beautiful experience to be present in being able to hear her teach. And so even something as simple as like, if you're a friend with somebody and it's, you know, comfortable where you're able to do so, if you do read that talk and it moves you, or you listen to this panel discussion that occurred a couple weeks ago, and you feel like it's something this person might like, you know, sharing those kinds of things can be, when I'm looking at this question number 3 about doing something new for the benefit of humankind, we at Earth Stewardship, I think we often see ourselves as kind of like the leaven that helps things rise a little bit. So like being able to share with others and help them make connections, either like with the talk from Sharon Eubank, or the materials that the church has produced about conservation and environmentalism on the church LDS, well, what used to be LDS.org, now is churchofjesuschrist.org, under the topics. If you look under environment or conservation, there's a lovely 1-minute video and some nice scriptures and resources, or the, like our local eartheast.org website, I think is really quite beautiful. One of our members, Kate Cummings, donated her time to design that for us. So sharing resources that might help somebody actually get onto a path where they think differently. And then you never know the degree to which that's going to influence their choices and how they interact with other people and the impact that's going to have.
Yeah, I think it's really important to realize that, like, most people, like, if someone is not recycling, that doesn't mean they hate the earth. And if somebody is not using a reusable water bottle, that doesn't mean they hate the earth. It's like, a lot of times it's like people don't realize how convenient it can be, or haven't like had time in their life to try and implement these things, or don't realize, like, I don't know, I do think most people like love the earth, and I think that's something we can connect over and move forward with. Which sort of brings me to my last point about earth stewardship and Christmas time, is that, like, I think one of the biggest things is that it's really important not to be a Grinch about it. I think this can be a challenge, right? Because I know that we have people in our family who, like, have said they don't want to participate in, they don't want to be giving gifts at all, because they feel like it's not good for the planet, and they don't want to be a part of that. And it's hard, because in a culture that's so focused towards like celebrating in Christmas, like if you say like, oh no, I don't want to use those styrofoam cups, or oh no, I don't want to use those, like, don't use that Christmas tree, then I think that's when we start seeing this clash happening, where people are like, oh, those earth tree huggers or something. Where as we realize that, as we show love for others and for the earth, people understand the value and realize that change is possible and fun. And yeah, thank you all for coming today. And then really quickly, I have a slide here about our next event that we'll be talking about in January with sustainable eating. Roland, do you want to say a few words about
Sure. I'm going to lead it. I still don't know what I'm going to talk about, but it's going to be mostly focused around like plant-based eating, because we have been eating plant-based for the last 3 years or so, and it's really changed our lives, and it's something that my husband and I are really passionate about. And so yeah, just like some tips and some just info about that.
Awesome. Yeah, is there anyone else who wanted to put in any last thoughts about Earth stewardship and Christmas time?
Well, I just appreciate the chance to hear all your ideas. I love being able to talk to people that feel that this is important, and that also that it's possible and that it can be positive, because yeah, we don't want to, alienate people or make people think, oh, we think we're better than them. It's not that. It's just like, just that I think we've just been brought up in just not valuing the things that we have in America, at least. We just kind of, it's such a we just got disposable society, and and it just like grates on my nerves. I'm like, so this is great to just think about ways to approach it with other people and with myself and family and everything. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your input as well.
Thank you so much, Becca. This has been a very positive, and I think I've learned some things, and I'm excited about the opportunity we have to be good Earth stewards, and that it's part of our experience of being on Earth is how do we make these choices and use our time, the talents, and the resources God has given us to bless others. And so I wish you each a very Merry Christmas as you go forth and try to do this in a way that's, I loved as Rebecca, her image with the earth and then the words joy to the world emblazoned on it, that connection as we can have a joyous Christmas celebration, but where we're focusing on the joy is also to the earth. And so we'll look forward to seeing some of you, we hope, in January when Ellen shares about our sustainable eating. I'm really looking forward to that. When I saw that image with those fruits and vegetables on it, it just is so appealing that I'm really glad that we're going to get to talk about that. And please invite friends or family to join with us. It's free to be part of our group. And you can let Becca or myself know if you want to join, or you can go online to the websites and join LDS Earth